Well, it's done. Hello, hello.
For anyone that can't see, do you want to just sort of move around slightly, please? Just so everyone can see the screen. Thank you.
All right, then.
Yeah, so I'll ring you up with that.
Good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me? Yeah. And I hope you can see the screen here because this is a very memorable time. And firstly, I would like to thank you all for coming. I know you've all travelled from far and wide. Firstly, I'd like to thank Alvaro and Daniel and his brother for allowing us all to use his premises here. And we're very lucky and we feel very honoured for us all to be here today. I'd also like to thank you for all the staff of Charles Ivy who have cleaned the building, especially for us, and leave the cars out ready. I would also like to thank the people for bringing along their wonderful heritage cars for display, and I know it's a lot of effort that goes into maintaining these cars and cleaning and transporting these beautiful vehicles. I'd like to thank Stephen Woodrow, Andrew and Elizabeth Taylor, Paul Griffin, Mark Feetham, Bob Searle, Alan Harrison and Richard Kelly for doing this, and for their people that they've brought along for helping to get those cars, wonderful cars and amazing cars on the front. Now we're here today to celebrate the life of late John Cooper and some of his stories and influences in life. John was born on the 17th of July 1923 in the borough of Kingston upon Thames, and he died on the 24th of December aged 2000, aged 77. His parents, Charles and Elsie Cooper, and John was the only child, sorry. Charles Cooper started a business here in Hollyfield Road in 1934. Now this picture is celebrating his 75th birthday. That's why I started that, because that was the last sort of birthday that we ever celebrated with John. And this is the people at Ferring with Michael, Sally and all the staff that were there. And I think Dave Bartholomew was in there as well, which he's here today. Anyway, so this was 1934, or before 1934, and this was the plot of land just in front of this big chimney is where we are all standing today. Now, in between the front row here was where the Yule Road runs along, and then we've got Hollyfield Road runs up the side. So Charles bought this bit of land here, but he rented a flat and showroom on the corner, which is now the block of flats, or the shops and that run along the side here. Now he started as a Vauxhall dealer when he bought built this small garage to start with, which is the Cooper garage at Surbiton, Cooper Cars. And they were Vauxhall agents, Austin and Ford, and John obviously helped in there. But John left school at the age of 15 and went on to be a tool maker after leaving school in the Surbiton County School. He was a tool maker and jig maker for a submarine company at Chiswick. And then the war come along and John he wanted to go into the RAF, but they didn't allow him. They didn't want him to leave the company at Chiswick, but he later went in as an instrument maker. So after the war, he came back, and his father had a flying flea. This little aircraft here, I don't know if you can see it very well, but this was an Austin 7 engine, which the car, but the engine wasn't powerful enough really for this plane. So Charles took the engine out of this plane and built this little car here, which is sitting out on the front, which was John Cooper's very, very first car, which he put this Austin 7 engine in it. And that's John's Goodwood sitting in his Cooper Special. And thank you, Woody, for bringing that along. Now the garage itself was all made of corrugated iron, so it was only a small little garage at the time. Cooper's, they rented a flat above the showroom in Yule Road, and that's just along here, which is 243A upstairs. So when you come out here, you can actually see the original place. Now, John married Paula in 1947, and Paula and John lived with John and Charles before they got married, all in that flat above, and Christine was born in that flat. Now, John had 3 children. He had Christine, John Michael Cooper, and Sally Cooper. Now, I think Chris Nichols today has very kindly brought the census along, which tells you where they actually lived in the flat above, with all their names on there. John, Charles, Paula were all in that flat there, and Asley. But once the children come along, Charles and Elsie, they moved away and they went to Box Hill, and John moved to Kingsdown Road, which is just the other side of the traffic lights there. Now John, as we've probably seen, I don't know if you can see that picture very well, but John used to test the cars along the A3. And I expect all of you have seen footage of him driving along the A3. Now, there's a funny story of John driving along that A3. He was spotted along there by a police motorcycle in the opposite direction. So John knew he shouldn't be really going up and down there. So he came back through Surbiton, back to here, when it was the old frontage, and pulled up on the forecourt where there was some guy standing on there, and I don't know if it was you guys that were standing there. He said to them, "Quick, shut the doors on the workshop, get in!" And they all hid behind the benches. And the policeman pulled up on his motorbike, and they closed the doors, and they're all hiding. And the policeman looked through the window, but he couldn't see nothing. So he drove on, but John was always in trouble for something. So this was John at Prescott. So John built these 2 Cooper 500s, in 1945, and he first raced them in 1946 at Prescott Hill, and they were quite successful, these cars. So this is John at the starting line. He never used to wear crash helmets, I don't know why, but that was John. This picture here is one of the cars that's on the front that very kindly Richard Kelly's brought along, which was taken across the other side of the road with John Cooper. So that's the actual car that John was with, that 500. So I don't know if you can see it very well. So John was always trying to drive the company forward. His father, Charles, was a very tight-fisted man, and Charles was always trying to economise, especially in the welding shop, where he would ask people to turn off their lights. He would say, "There's enough light coming from those welding torches." So he was very mean. Now, Sterling Moss was another guy, and he used to come and visit the garage on many occasions. But before when he first came, he did see a shiny Cooper 500 in the showroom, which was in York Road. And he had finally got his father to agree to buy it for him. But I did ask Sterling, because some of the guys who worked at Cooper's, the mechanics there, they said that Sterling used to turn up and want to do press-ups and challenge them. I met Sir Sterling and I asked him if this was true. He said, yes, of course it was. And I always won. It's a little bit difficult trying to do no hands and one foot. Anyway, the Cooper Car Company was formed in December 1947. So this picture here shows John Cooper with some of the ex-staff, or the staff on the forecourt. And on the wall there, I don't know if you can see above John's head, was the tyre pressure gauge. And that tyre pressure gauge, Michael is now going to show you, but this was the actual tyre gauge that came from that wall. Do you want to hold it up and... Do you want to walk round?
I want to walk round now.
Sorry, John.
It would have been struck in the wall. I'll go a bit quicker, Chris. These don't see from there, can't you? All right, okay. Don't work it out. Next question on.
Yeah.
Turn.
So as we know that Charles Cooper, John's father, he was a very mean man. And Roy Golding, who was the works manager, asked John and Charles that it's so cold in this bloody workshop, he said. He said, what can you do about it? So Charles got up out of his office and he came downstairs, which his office was upstairs at the time, and he came down and He said, if you want central heating, he got hold of this paraffin heater and put it in the centre of the workshop. In the centre of the workshop, Michael.
Chris, that.
I said, if you want central heating, you bloody well got it. So poor old Roy, he didn't know what to say. So this was, as you can see from this picture here, obviously they did have some heating put in afterwards. And the mezzanine floor above your head is still there. It did come down at one time, but Alvaro's very kindly put it all back, so it's as it was. This is Bob Sell's T39. Is that right, Bob? T39, bobtail of 1955.
Yes, Chris, it is.
Yeah, thank you. Which is out again on the forecourt. A beautiful looking car and very rare. So Coopers were built in Formula 2s, Formula 3s, Cooper Jaguars for racing. This is the Cooper Jaguar outside here on the forecourt with John again with no crash helmet, but obviously that's how he liked to go. Roy Salvadori was getting involved and driving for Coopers in the late 50s. And they had a chief designer which was nicknamed Whiskers, and his name was Owen Maddox. He designed a lot of the race cars and parts on the race cars. There is some of his drawings upstairs that you can see later. But Roy... Oops, pressing buttons, Roy Salvadori went on to race with Aston Martin as he was tied in with them. So pressing buttons. No, too far back. Done. Sorry, guys. So John Cooper was building cars for the likes of Rob Walker, which Sterling Moss drove, and Morris Tramiaton, I'll say it quickly because I can't pronounce it, was a Le Mans winner, I believe, with Ferrari at one time. And this car is on the forecourt, which is a Formula 1 car, and Sterling Moss won in New Zealand and Australia with this car. So it's quite a special car, that one on the forecourt, and I want to thank Paul Griffin for bringing it up, and with Chris driving it down from Nottingham so that we're able to see that car. An Australian man, the name of Jack Brabham, came over from Australia, where he'd been racing a Cooper in Australia. He came to see John Cooper and was given a job as a mechanic to start with for the first year. Now Jack had nowhere to live when he first came, and there's a pub, the Royal Oak pub, which is just at the back of us. Now he had nowhere to live, so he had a caravan, and his caravan he parked in the car park at the back here, and there's a bridge that goes over the river, the stream here, which Charles Cooper used to feed the ducks from. And Jack used to come in the back entrance into the garage. And the bridge is obviously still here, so I think it's got some iron railings on it now, but the bridge is still there. So when Jack came, he was an engineer anyway, and he said to John he wanted to put they were Formula 2 cars with front engines at the time, and he wanted to put the Cooper Climax engine, the fire pump engine, in the back of a rear car. So John allowed him to do that in here, and obviously there's the bridge there, which we can see. Jack was racing a year after he started at Cooper's. When Jack first came to Cooper's, he had, as I say, nowhere to live. Sorry, I'm just going over the same things here. Sorry, George, I'll give you those. Anyway, so a very young Bruce McLaren came over from New Zealand that Jack knew. And when Bruce arrived here in the country, he asked, "Where is my car?" And John and Charles said, "It's over here, your car." He said, "Well, what do you mean?" And it was tubular frame, suspension, engine. He said, "If you want to race it, you've got to build your own car." And as we know, Bruce McLaren was a very clever guy, so there was no problem there. And it's 53 years ago yesterday that he had his bad accident and was unfortunately killed at Goodwood. In 1959, Jack was a very successful in Formula One, winning the World Championship in a rear-engine Formula One car. In his last race in Sebring, USA, Jack ran out of fuel. And John Cooper actually thought that he'd come over the line and won. But it was Bruce that came over the line to be the youngest Formula One driver at the time, while John Cooper was doing a victory roll. And then couple of minutes later, or a minute later, he saw Jack pushing his car to the end to win the World Championship. Jack also won the championship for Coopers in 1960, but the budget for the Formula One at the time was £50,000, and 10,000 of that was Brabham's wages. Jack left Cooper's in 1962 to go on his own, and he became successful on his own and winning a World Championship. Here we have Andrew and Elizabeth Taylor's T56, a Formula Junior designed by Eddie State, who unfortunately couldn't be here today, but he wanted to. He worked up on the roof there with Owen Maddox. So we're lucky to have this car on the forecourt, and I'd like to thank you, Andrew and Elizabeth, for bringing that along today. Now, this is a story I didn't know about, but I was speaking to Doug Nye on the other day on the phone, and I did speak to two of the Cooper grandchildren last weekend, and none of them actually knew this story either. But John was telling Doug that when he used to have his flying lessons and he became a pilot, he used to keep his plane at Fair Oaks Airport. Now he was good friends with Colin Chapman, and they were both in the plane together, and they got to about 10 to 12 feet high, and John nosedived it, crashed it into the ground. They all obviously got out all okay, and Colin shouted out, "Burn the bloody thing, set fire to it, let's claim on the insurance." Now John thought about it and thought better of it, because he thought that probably his dad had not insured it. And guess what? He didn't. So he didn't. Now this is the Cooper frontage, and obviously you've got the Austin 7 of John Cooper there. This was redesigned by Owen Maddox's father, Richard Maddox, in late 1957, 1958. Now this is Langley Road, which is about a mile from here, probably less than that, which some of the guys actually here today worked in. Now that's where they built the Formula One cars as well, and I think the Indy car was built here at Langley Road. So it was just a bit like a lock-up, was that right, Trevor?
Yeah.
That's Jack outside with Charles here, and I think John run it more up there and Charles run down here, was that right? And then he was a bit of a menace, Charles.
Yeah, a little bit.
Clunky things again. So they built the Indy car and things up there, and that was in 1961. Now this was the passenger list of and visa for John Cooper to go out to the Indianapolis in 1961. And this is his address, 16 Kingsdown Road, Surbiton. Obviously his date of birth, and that's when Jack took the car out there and changed IndyCar from being front wheel engines to they wanted to then, after doing very well, I think he came ninth, and they wanted then to change them to rear engine cars, and changed everything. In the early 60s, John went to see his friend Izzy Gonis, which he asked about building a hotted up Mini. And Izzy Gonis and the chairman of BMC, Harriman, agreed to this, but they had to get those homologated, so they built 1,000 Coopers and rally cars to get that homologated. And this was all done, obviously, with the works drivers, people like Paddy Hopkirk. And as you can see, we've got a Cooper car company Mini of Mark Theakum's that we, thank you very much, Mark, for bringing that up, which is a special car out there. And people like John Rhodes, Smoky John Rhodes, was racing that. Now, Coopers they started a driving school at Brands Hatch, which was run by Terry Kitson and Michael Ginger Devlin, and that was quite successful to get new British drivers into Formula One and race cars, and they put there was a lot of cars, a lot of people that came out of it. I can't remember, there was a few drivers that actually did make it. This was John Cooper with his good friend Sir Alec Zagonis. Cooper building Formula Juniors, as we've seen a couple out there. And I'd also like to thank Alan Harrison with his T56 out there for bringing it along today. Now those had the Morris Minor engines, which was a Formula Junior engine. So this was what was a junior class, and I know that Peter Jackson was a big Formula Junior man. So this picture here is shown in the showroom in Yule Road, which is now the Barbers. John Cooper launching the Mini with Douglas. It's gone from me. Douglas Greenwood and his wife, with John Surtees and Bruce McLaren, Now the Greenwoods have got the funeral directors round the corner, and we were very lucky that his son came and did a speech in here last year. This was Mark's Phaeton's car with Mark, I believe that's you driving, isn't it? Cooper's bought a larger premises because this was very small premises, as you can probably see, in Canada Road in Byfleet. And sorry, that was Alan's car there. Yeah, so they bought some premises in Canada Road, Byfleet, and Jonathan Seath, at the time, he bought the Cooper Car Company name. Now, Jonathan Seath was one of the directors of Marks and Spencer's, and then it was known as the Chipstead Motor Company. Sorry. Now, for that, I have a... Sorry, I missed some pictures there. So this is the cars up at Canada Road here. And with the Cooper Car Company minis were built there as well. And that's... Trevor will probably tell us what that was. But I've got a special letter here that I'm going to read out. This was addressed to Trevor, who was the chief mechanic at Cooper's. And if Trevor would like to just come over while I stand so we know who Trevor is.
What? I'll just point at it.
So this was addressed to Trevor Orchard, and the directors at the time was Jonathan Seath, John Cooper, and we had Roy Salvadori. This was on the 15th of June 1966. Dear Trevor, last Sunday's race has been a complete tonic for everyone that is here of any interest whatsoever in Cooper Racing Team. To achieve this, tremendous efforts have been made by several individuals at the Cooper Car Company, and you, Trevor, I certainly have been one of these few that have made Jochen Rink, that is, brilliant performance possible. After all the hard and ceaseless work at the Maserati factory, you have your engine blow up after only 3 practice laps was almost soul destroying. However, your attitude, or let's change the engine and get ready for the second practice session after this disaster, was something that I feel only comes a born racing mechanic. They said like father, like son, and this is now perfectly prepared to believe. You know how contented Jochen feels about your preparation of his race car, and may I just add my own warm thanks also. It's desperately difficult for a manufacturer to win the World Championship event, but we'll go on striving, and if we continue to keep our cars competitive so that at least we can give a serious competition, then I will be very happy. Well done, and thank you, Trevor. Yours, Roy, which was Roy Salvadori.
If anybody's got any questions about the 66, 67, 68 Formula One Coopers, that was at Byfleet, feel free to come and ask any questions.
Please do. Hello? So John had a lot of influence over the cars at Abingdon. Now these tuned rallies cars went on to win the Monte Carlo 3 times with drivers like Paddy Hopkirk. Now, not that long ago, Alvaro was telling me that Renault Elton came in here and he said, I had a funny man that wanted to do some filming. He sat on a little funny box just here in the middle of the workshop and they did some filming with him. Now, I said, well, who was that then, Alvaro? And he said, I don't know, but he was a funny little man. And that was Renault Elton, who also won the Monte Carlo rally. Now, the tuning of these minis was Michael Ginger Devlin. He did a lot of tuning for all the minis and things at Downton Engineering, and also with so on the 2nd of October 1964, John's father, Charles, passed away sadly, and in 1965 John had a bad accident on the A3 with a 20 Mini. He was driving back from Fair Oaks to have dinner with Roy Salvadori in his 20 Mini, which was an engine in the back as well as in the front. And I think Trevor was telling me the 20 Mini was being built over here on the, all behind you here. Anyway, he was driving back and he had the rear suspension broke on it and somersaulted John on the A3 again, the famous A3, and John was almost killed. Very bad accident, split his head right open, broke loads of ribs and everything. Now, he wasn't wearing a seatbelt, and he said, you know, that may well have saved me, but I always wear a seatbelt now. But this is when, after that, John went down to Little Hampton to convalesce after the accident, and he, you know, John was been in quite a bad way. So he bought a garage in Ferring because he was getting under Paula's feet, and she wasn't too happy with having him round the house. So he bought this garage, which is John Cooper Garages, which he opened in 1971. This was a British Leyland garage, and oops, too many buttons. No. So this was a British Leyland garage, and then later John tried to build, he wanted to get back into cars and building and things, so he tried to build a Metro Cooper, which I now own, which is, this is seen on Ferring Green with John Cooper in the middle with his son Michael and his son-in-law John Angelo. But it was very difficult because Coopers had already sold the name Cooper Car Company to Jonathan Seath, so it was difficult to actually use that name. John was obviously still very good friends with Jonathan Seath and bought the name back as it was dormant back in the late 80s. I started working in 1982 at Coopers, and I was there for 25 years working with John Cooper, which was a great honour. And we also have Dave Bartholomew. He also was at Coopers with me at Ferring, and also Kumar, he came down and was a big fan of Cooper's and used to work once a week at Cooper's. So, now John Cooper, he was at Silverstone in 1985. Now it's all round about his birthday time. This is the 19th of July 1985. He was the guest of honour for the BRDC, and Honda. He spoke to Honda at the Silverstone meeting, and they asked him if he wanted to become a Honda dealership, and he snapped their hands off because British Leyland at the time weren't doing too well, and so John. He pulled out of British Leyland, and we started the Honda dealership up, which this is John with his Honda Prelude outside John Cooper garages in a newspaper cutting, and they obviously wanted to use the Cooper Special there, and by 1986 we were a Honda dealership, and obviously they had a lot of dealings with Japan then, so Mini Japan approached John Cooper because obviously the relationship with Honda about building mini kits for the Japanese market. We built mini kits which is in these special boxes with the kit ahead and exhaust and carburettors, and we exported them to Japan, and these boxes were then used as coffee tables. I have now repurchased one that's come back from Japan, but the boys made those in the workshop at Cooper's in their spare time to earn some extra money. So they were built by the guys in the workshop. Now, John still had a good relationship with everybody, as you know. One of the nicest men, as Doug Nye said. He's probably not a good technician or designer, but bloody hell, he's a good man. That's Doug Nye's words. Anyway, British Leyland were building mini thousands still here. They asked us if we would build mini conversions from these kits, the same here. I know Peter's got his here today, which was an anniversary car, and we built quite a lot of those. And then we did a prototype built for Rover that tested for a 1275, and we built the RSP, which 1,000 of those were made. Now, if those hadn't been built, that was the end of Mini, because that's what they said to John, and it continued for another 10 years. We built lots of special Minis for different customers. We built special cars, special editions, and one of the funny stories was that we built a Cooper 500, Cooper Sport 5, which was Jack Knight's 5-speed gearbox. Now, John was good friends with Jack Knight, so he thought he'd try this 5-speed gearbox. Well, when we used to come into work on a Monday, John never missed a trick. So he would come in and say, Chris, what's that Mini doing in the car park? Well, which one, Mr. Cooper? Well, you know the one with the white roof. So I say, well, you'd obviously seen this Sport 5. So I said, well, don't worry, Tony Franks knows all about that. So I used to pass him over to Tony, who was the workshop foreman, and he'd say, right, get Jack Knight on the phone now, get him on the phone. And he used to get onto the phone to Jack Knight, and he'd say, right, I want that sorted. Anyway, so there was another funny story. Only myself and the postmaster know this one, and I'll hold this up because it was a tax disc that John Cooper wanted. Now, he used to go into the post office, and buy a tax disc. Now the tax office for us was only 100 yards away. So, of course, I was doing sales on a Saturday, and John said to me, I've got some people coming from a long way. Can you go and get the road tax for me? I said, yes, Mr. Cooper. I said, there's no insurance here for the car. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. See Peter, he'll sort that out for you. So off I trotted up to the post office. Peter, I haven't got the insurance. Chris, I can't give you the tax. Can't give you the road tax. No, okay. So I walked back to John Cooper and I said, Mr. Cooper, Peter won't give me the road tax. Right. So he gets up. I can't get up because of my foot, but off we go. He said, come with me, boy. So we walked up there, and his arms are swinging backwards and forwards. We get into the tax office, and Peter, he said, Mr. Cooper, I can't give you the road tax because you haven't got the insurance. What do you mean, Peter? What do you mean? He said, you haven't got the insurance. I can't give it to you. I'm sorry, Mr. Cooper. And we all called him Mr. Cooper. So Mr. Cooper, with his jacket on, and he's a very smart man. He said, I'm going to have to get my daughter to do this bit, because Mr. Cooper, he said, Peter, you have got to, jumping up and down on the spot, you have got to give me the road tax, please. And he didn't get the road tax, and we both walked back to the showroom. I don't know what happened after that. Anyway, in 1999, John and Michael, they bought a garage in East Preston as Honda were trying to push us to leave the showroom for the Minis as well as Hondas being together. And John obviously wanted to talk to everybody. He was so friendly. But they bought this garage in East Preston, and this is one of the last pictures of John in East Preston, standing there at the doorway with a mini club. We had many mini clubs coming round, and John used to take them on a tour of the garage, talk to them about the photographs on the wall. So, there were some special times. And these are all the classic minis that were lined up on the East Preston forecourt. And unfortunately, John passed away a year later. But John did get to see the new Mini, and he did have some input up at Gaydon. So, people say, did John ever see the new Mini? Yes, he did. He went as the new Mini came in, he passed on, and the old Mini faded away with John. John passed away on Christmas Eve 2000. But for that, he was awarded in March 2000, before he passed away, he was awarded the CBE for his contribution in the motor industry. So I really just wanted to now just say thank you everybody for coming, and thank you for the Cooper Car Club for sponsoring the cakes and the drinks today. And also I want to thank Charles Ivy again for all what they've done, for allowing us all to come into their premises, and we're very lucky and very privileged to be able to see this Formula One factory. And many cars were built, all the people that bought their cars were all built here, so, take as many pictures and everything else. But thank you, Charles Ivy guys, Elbro, Daniel, and all the team. And I also want to thank the West Sussex Mini Boys for all their efforts that they've done today, for helping me on the day when I, hurt my leg and I can't get up here with all the bits. And I want to thank all you guys for helping me bring up the bits and being out there for me. So really that ends what we are at. And I thank everybody for everything. We will get some photographs as well. Now I was going to say one of the things, and I passed it unfortunately, I know Anna and Sue are here, which is Roy Golding's daughters. And without Roy, he was a big man that kept us all together. Now Roy Golding was a workshop manager here, or foreman they called them in those days, and Roy, he was a special man. Now here you can see he kept a Cooper reunion with John Cooper, and I did have names, but because they're not here unfortunately. So you might recognise some of the people that are here, and some of them are past unfortunately, and we think about them all. So we had people like Alan State, Frank Butler, Colin Darby, and we've got his son here today, Charles Newton Darby, who's a cousin of John Cooper, Mike Barney, Owen Maddock, Terry Kitson, Dennis Davis, Eddie State. Unfortunately Eddie couldn't make it today, but he sends his regards. Sonia State, Ray Rowe, known as Tex, Bruce Judd, Tommy McGlone, Mike Ginger Devlin, Roy Golding, Arthur Gadd, we've got John Cooper there, Gordon Whitehead and John Booth Hume, and not forgetting the rest of Dougie Johnson, John Bliss, Tony Whitburn, Trevor Orchard, Clive Walton, all these guys that formed this big family of Coopers. So we're going to have some photographs of the people with their cars outside. I would like the guys, ex-staff members and family members of those to be photographed in those outside, and we've got some guys that are going to do those photographs. And I also want you to all celebrate 100 years of John Cooper. We've got lots of cake, not just that one, but that was the cake we tried to copy that John Cooper first had when he was his last birthday cake that we all celebrated when he was at 75. So help yourself to tea and coffee and cakes, and thank you all. And if you want me to show you upstairs and do that once you've had a little coffee and a chat, then I'm more than happy to do that for you and see where John Cooper's old office was, and where the boardroom and everything else. So thank you all very much. Sorry it went on a bit.
I just want to say a really special thanks to my dad, Chris Dawson, for organising this, because it's been going on for a year now that he's been organising it, and what a wonderful speech he gave. So I just want to say a big thank you to him.